he has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
You just will never be a good fighter. So I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start. But as we saw,
Me like sparring.
Yeah.
When I watched it, which, you know, look, I paid for it. They got me. I thought it was going to be a real fight.
You know, but me, I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm just gonna keep it 100, man. Jake Paul is fugazi. He's fake. That's how you feel. Truly.
Joe Rogan's jaw literally drops when Anthony Joshua drops this bombshell. Jake Paul wanted the entire fight scripted, not just choreographed entrances or predetermined rounds. The whole damn thing. Joshua's sitting there explaining how Paul's team approached him with what basically amounts to a movie script, complete with who throws which punches when, who goes down in what round, and exactly how the fight would end. And here's the kicker. They offered him an absolutely insane payday to go along with it. We're talking generational wealth money, but Joshua looked them dead in the eye and said hell no. He told them if they're stepping in that ring, it's going to be a real fight with real consequences, or he's walking away entirely. Rogan's reaction says everything. His face goes from confusion to shock to this slow realization that everything we've suspected about Paul's previous fights might actually be true.
He's also nuts, right? Just
Yeah.
the fact that he's willing to fight the two-time heavyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist,
Yeah.
a guy who's gigantic in his
And that's when the conversation takes a dark turn, because Rogan starts connecting dots that paint a disturbing picture of Paul's entire boxing career. He's looking at those past victories everyone questioned. The Ben Askren knockout that looked like bad theater. The Tyron Woodley fights where a former UFC champion seemed to forget how to throw combinations. The Anderson Silva bout where one of the greatest strikers in MMA history looked like he was moving through quicksand. Rogan's breaking down how each of these wins conveniently happened at moments when Paul needed credibility most. Right when people started calling him a joke, boom, spectacular knockout. Right when his pay-per-view numbers started dropping, suddenly he's landing picture-perfect shots on guys who used to be killers. The timing was too perfect, the outcome's too convenient, and now with Joshua's revelation, it's starting to make sickening sense. These weren't fights. They were productions designed to build a fake resume and fool the public into believing Paul was a legitimate threat to real boxers.
Cheering for Jake, or if I think that Joshua's more experienced or better, I believe I believe boxing's real. If boxing is an actual sport, if it is an actual sweet science, then of course a guy that's done it 11 times cannot compete with the Olympic champion. Of course. This is before you get size in there, before you get professional world titles in there. A guy that's done this 11 times cannot go into the Olympic Games and medal. If boxing, in fact, should be believed. I was with Portnoy. I liked it. I liked how he said that. So, you know, that's how I feel too. Because I'm also cheering for Jake Paul. But I get it. I know we're not going to win tonight. But that's a compliment to boxing. And it is very hard for people to digest that Anthony Joshua can't cut him off. He can't find him. He can't do anything with that reach. He can't go out there and rush him. He can't throw this kid in a corner and beat him up. That is disappointing to me. That is baffling to me. As an MMA guy, I will just share with you, that would not be a problem at all. At all. If a guy's running away from me, it would be absolutely no problem. And you can put the boundaries at the city line. You can put it at the state line. I will track him down. I will put him somewhere and I will beat the dog out of him. So in a ring, I get where that is really disappointing. I get it, but it doesn't change the fact that that's what happened. And then Joshua, by the way, has the right to turn to some other thing. Where I'm saying he had to cut him off, grab him, throw him in the corner, go beat him up. Well, I'm saying that Joshua has the right to go, I could feel some stuff. I knew it was going to come my way, right? For Joshua to say, well, I had the experience and yeah, he was moving and yeah, I could have cut him off a little different. But I didn't mind the way this was going. I didn't mind that he was running. I knew he would slow down. I knew he would come to me eventually. Like for that to be Joshua's mind.
But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Chael Sonnen jumps into this conversation and starts breaking down the numbers, and what he reveals is damning. A fighter with 11 professional bouts, 11, was being positioned to face an Olympic medalist who's held multiple heavyweight championships. In what universe does that make competitive sense? Sonnen's going through the math and it's staggering. Joshua has over 300 amateur fights, Olympic gold, and battles against the best heavyweights on the planet. Paul's resume includes a basketball player, a couple of MMA guys past their prime, and some boxers nobody's heard of. The experience gap isn't just wide, it's a F********ing canyon. And then there's the physical reality that makes this even more ridiculous. We're talking about a weight difference that puts Paul at a massive disadvantage against a guy who's been knocking out professional heavyweights for years. Sonnen's point is brutal, but accurate. No legitimate boxing commission would sanction this fight under normal circumstances because it's not competitive, it's dangerous.
When we expect Jake Paul to be fighting like higher level competition, it's not because he has under 10 fights. It's because he talks a lot of shit.
Yeah, but that's also why we're talking about him.
And that's exactly true. But I think on both sides of the equation, we've got to like admit that a young fighter under 5 fights isn't fighting great competition. So
True.
If you're calling Jake Paul a legitimate boxer and then you're expecting him to do what legitimate boxers do, I'm not sure he's not doing that, and probably more.
That's what I'm saying about the knockout of Tyron Woodley, because it was just a regular.
Now listen to this part, because Rogan's analysis of what Paul actually wanted reveals something deeply troubling about the state of modern boxing. Paul's entire brand was built on this narrative that he's a real fighter taking real risks against real competition. But when faced with actual danger, when confronted with the possibility of getting seriously hurt by one of the most devastating punchers in the heavyweight division, his first instinct was to script it. Think about what that means. All those press conferences where he talked about proving himself, all those training videos showing him working with elite coaches, all that trash talk about being ready for anyone, it was performance art. The moment he stepped up to face someone who could genuinely end his career with one punch, he wanted guarantees. He wanted to know exactly when Joshua would throw, exactly where those punches would land, and exactly how much damage he'd have to absorb to make it look real. That's not boxing. That's stunt work with a massive payday attached.
I can't knock you I can't knock your hustle when you built something outside of boxing and you said, hey, yo, I'm coming over here to the sport now and I'm gonna pick and choose who I fight. Y'all come follow me. If they follow him, man, I just understand what it is. I know what I'm looking at. You're not gonna fool me over here. Save that stuff for them other people, because I'm not gonna believe that I'm the face of, no, you're not the face of boxing. I'm not giving you that, because that's for a lifer.
But that's what he believes.
That's cool, I can't knock him for that. People believe a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. I'm just saying, you can do all the rah-rah stuff, that's your business. But I just know what I'm looking at, right? But on the monetary side and it being an event, the truth is that when he does fight, it does bring attention around the sport. People debate, they argue, people want to see the fight. Is it legit? Is it him?
And get this, Joe Rogan's breakdown of what the actual fight looked like exposes even more problems with Paul's approach to boxing. Even when Joshua agreed to keep it real, Rogan noticed the bout felt controlled, almost like a sparring session where both guys had agreed not to go for the kill. Joshua's one of the most devastating punchers in the sport, a guy who's put elite heavyweights to sleep with single shots, but he seemed to be holding back just enough to avoid causing permanent damage. Rogan's wondering if this was Joshua's way of protecting Paul while still giving fans something legitimate to watch. Because here's the reality, if Joshua had really let his hands go, if he'd thrown with the same intention he brings against Usyk or Fury, this fight would have lasted about 90 seconds and ended with Paul in the hospital. The fact that Paul walked away without serious injuries suggests Joshua was fighting smart, not just for strategy, but for Paul's long-term health. And that raises uncomfortable questions about whether Paul even understood the level of danger he was flirting with.
I thought Jake Paul's a brave guy. Then I found out he made $100 million. I was thinking, well, anybody would fight for $100 million, but bro, I literally ran into Logan Paul in New York City and I said to him, it was weird too, because I was going into a studio to interview Kamaru Usman for one of my shows. And Logan Paul was at the coffee shop. He's like, DC. I was like, what's up, Logan? Because he does a tremendous job in WWE. Yeah, Logan Paul does.
I don't watch WWE, but I know that.
Dude, you're huge. He might literally be the best professional wrestler in the world.
Really?
He's such an athlete, bro.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. But I'm just stroking him right now. I swear to God, bro, it's unbelievable how good the kid is.
Okay.
From the moment he started doing it, he was really good.
He can cut a promo, huh? Like, he got what kids say.
He's got a promo, but he's also good in the ring.
Okay.
He's really athletic. I said to him, I go, what type of safeguards do you have in place to make sure he doesn't get his head knocked off against Anthony Joshua? He's gonna fight Gervonta Davis, who weighed in at 137 2 fights ago. So now you're gonna go fight Anthony Joshua, who weighs all of 250? He said, all right. He said he's gonna just fight him. I go, man, he's very bold. And then what happened was he ran a lot.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Everybody goes, even Eddie Hearn goes, he did better than Francis. I'm like, well, Francis didn't move around much. Francis thought he could actually fight him because of what he did to Tyson Fury, right? Couldn't. Tyson Fury might have overlooked him a little bit, and I think that's what happened. Like, he got caught with the right hand drop. Anthony Joshua was like, I'm not taking any chances with this guy. So he fought him, and he took him serious. But Francis didn't move. Jake did a good job of moving around for a long time, but all that moving costs energy. Right?
I mean, I used to spar with the Robert Guerrero here in Gilwood.
Yep.
And I would go in and spar with him. I'd tell people that I would spar with him for his first 4 rounds. He would do 12 rounds.
Yep.
He would use me as his warm-up rounds.
Yep.
And I was in fight shape. I couldn't go and spar unless I was ready to fight. Like, I was 2 or 3 weeks out from my...
Yeah.
I was ready to fight. And by the 4th round, I was fucking exhausted. And he would just make me miss. You know, if you miss more, it's the light work. It makes you more tired.
Especially when you're throwing big punches like Jake was throwing.
Yeah.
And then wrestling. It's like shooting double legs and shit. Like, all you look like Dylan Davis. Oh, seconds, bro. All that wrestling was crazy, dog. It's like, bro, have you ever in my life seen that much wrestling in a boxing match? It was Dylan Davis, Logan Paul all over again. Every time he would fall, you got to get up. Yeah. Every time you shoot, you got to get up. It makes you more tense. It should be more iron off you. It's a worse. I mean,
Hold up, did you catch what Tim Bradley just said? Because this is where the boxing community's frustration with Paul reaches a boiling point. Bradley's not just criticizing Paul's record, he's calling the entire operation fake, scripted entertainment masquerading as legitimate sport. And Bradley knows what he's talking about. This is a former world champion who's been in real wars, who's felt the pressure of stepping into the ring when everything's on the line and there's no script to follow. When Bradley says Paul's fights look orchestrated, when he points out how opponents seem to be following predetermined patterns rather than fighting to win, he's not speculating. He's identifying specific technical details that separate real competition from choreographed spectacle. The way punches are thrown with just enough power to look convincing, but not enough to cause real damage. The way knockdowns happen at dramatically perfect moments. The way guys who used to be killers suddenly develop glass jaws when they're across from Paul.
He said before the fight, I'm going to break him down and then I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what he did. I thought it'd be all over within 3 rounds. But, you know, when I got in the ring after, because I was shouting, just, you know, anywhere, arms. I got in, he went, what are you rushing me for? And I was like, oh, sorry. So, but like, obviously he knows what he's doing, and actually now quite pleased that we got the rounds, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw you said that. Really random, I was on Twitter and I saw Jake Paul's mum said she wants to get in the ring and punch you. She said she doesn't like the smug look on your face. She is promoting her book, so I'm not sure if she wants, you know. But did you see that? What did you think of that?
No, I was very sad because I couldn't have been nicer and more respectful of Jake and what he's done. And I think Logan's amazing. I think he's an incredible athlete. And I shook Jake Paul's dad's hand in the ring, you know. And if I would have seen Mum, I would have said, all right. But I think over the years, we've obviously had our beef, and she probably don't like me anyway. And I am probably a little bit smug. I wasn't smug after the fight because I would have been more smug if it was all over in a round. Yeah. So, no, I'll give Jake respect. And, yeah. Sorry, Jake's mum doesn't.
But wait, it gets worse. Bradley's explaining how these fake victories have created a ripple effect that's damaging the entire sport of boxing. Paul's manufactured record has convinced casual fans that he's a legitimate contender, which means real fighters are missing opportunities because promoters would rather book the YouTube star who brings guaranteed pay-per-view numbers. Young boxers coming up through the amateur ranks are watching Paul skip decades of development and get handed title shots, and they're wondering why they're grinding through small venue fights for peanuts when internet fame seems to be a shortcut to the top. Bradley's warning that this approach doesn't just hurt Paul's opponents, it undermines the credibility of boxing itself and sends the message that entertainment value matters more than athletic achievement. When fans can't tell the difference between real competition and scripted drama, the entire sport suffers.
me of like, you know, like when you got a fly on the windscreen and you're trying to swat it, and you're trying to swat it and you miss and you keep tapping, and then eventually, bang, you get it. That's exactly what that fight was. Jake Paul didn't get in there to win last night. He got in there to survive. And he didn't do a better job of surviving. He sold the fight brilliantly. That's what he is. He's a salesman. And he's a YouTuber, influencer, call him whatever you want. So from that perspective, he did his job, but he never got in there to win. He just got in there to got beat up. I'm glad Anthony Joshua done a number on him. This is why boxers are boxers, YouTubers, whatever they want to call themselves, influencers, you know, they should stay in their lane and fight people that they're supposed to fight on their level. This guy was never on Anthony Joshua's level, and Joshua did what he needed to do, did what he had to do for the sake of boxing, and blow this guy out and just knock him out.
What about the fact that Jake was able to land on him clean a couple of times? What did you make of that?
Oh, listen, you can't get into the water without getting hit. Fortunately for Joshua, that guy can't break an egg. So he was never in any danger. You know, he's always going to get hit back. I mean, you know, it was 6 rounds. Anthony Joshua was always going to take at least 1 or 2 shots over that 6-round period, but it was nothing to hurt him. It was nothing to bother him. And like I say, this is all about getting AJ's confidence back. Okay. If Jake Paul fights, if he fights KSI or KFC or whatever his name is, then those two are evenly matched, aren't they? They're evenly matched, and then they could fight, you know.
Here's the kicker, though. Daniel Cormier's take on this situation reveals something fascinating about how even critics can get caught up in Paul's promotional machine. Cormier starts by acknowledging Paul's bravery for stepping in with Joshua, praising his movement and strategy for allowing him to avoid serious damage. He's talking about Paul's athleticism, his ability to last against an elite opponent, his commitment and respect for the sport. But then you realize what Cormier's actually describing, a guy who managed to survive a controlled sparring session with someone who was clearly holding back. The bravery Cormier's praising is really just Paul's willingness to get in the ring with someone who could hurt him, knowing that person probably wouldn't. The skill he's highlighting is Paul's ability to move around and avoid punishment from someone who wasn't really trying to inflict punishment. It's like praising someone's courage for swimming with sharks when the sharks have been sedated.
Jake for surviving, but he wasn't trying to win. Every once in a while in between running, he would throw a wish, hope it would land and do some damage. He was just hoping that Santa would come early and give him a present, a gift from the god. There's a reason in the jungle that a gazelle sometimes outruns a cheetah, the fastest animal, because fear makes you survive. But unfortunately, this baby gazelle ran out of steam. For AJ, it was like a light sparring session. You could see he didn't fear anything coming back. After the fight, he looked like he'd been for a light jog. AJ knew the constant pressure was breaking him down, because trust me, when you've got a guy who can punch stalking you, it's tiring, because you can't switch off. One mistake and you could end up asleep. AJ's a massive puncher. Even the punches that weren't landing clean were doing damage. Any heavyweight landing in 10-ounce gloves isn't fun. Again, credit to Jake. He got dropped, but he kept getting back up. That big head is durable. Did Jake do what he said he was going to do? No. He's a businessman. He sells the dream. At no stage did he really try to win. It was a bank robbery in broad daylight. On paper, he shouldn't have been there. He got in and kind of gave it a go. He risked his life for the fans' entertainment. Was it brave or stupidity? Well, regardless, I still think he's been great for boxing, bringing new eyes to the sport. Just look what he's done for female boxing. The undercard was female heavy, giving them opportunity, giving them a platform. Personally, I think it's great. For Jake Paul, the fight was a win-win. Once he's healed up, he can come again. But next time, fight someone at your level, light heavyweight or cruiserweight. And he did show heart, and I did see some improvement, despite the fact he was mainly running. He did show good movement and decent defense. People saying it's embarrassing for AJ. No, it's not. He just got his best and easiest payday. He can laugh his way to the bank. Nobody can honestly say if they were AJ, given the opportunity, they wouldn't take it.
And here's what nobody's talking about: the $100 million payday that Cormier mentioned reveals the real motivation behind this entire spectacle. Follow the money and everything makes sense. Paul's not trying to become a legitimate boxer. He's running a business that happens to involve boxing rings and gloves. Every fight is a product launch. Every opponent is a supporting actor in Paul's ongoing brand expansion. That $100 million isn't payment for athletic achievement. It's revenue from selling a fantasy to people who want to believe they're watching real competition. The scariest part is how effective this strategy has been. Paul's made more money in a few years of fake boxing than most legitimate champions make in entire careers. He's proven that in modern sports entertainment, narrative sells better than authenticity, and spectacle generates more revenue than skill.
Surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches, partly because Jake was squirmy and rotating on the outside. Also in part because I think, as I indicated on Friday, he's watching this guy with pretty bad footwork. He was literally tripping over himself.
That's it. Now here's where Eddie Hearn's perspective gets really interesting, because he's essentially admitting that Joshua treated this like a business transaction rather than a real fight. Hearn's talking about patience, controlling pace, gradually wearing Paul down, but what he's really describing is Joshua's strategy for giving fans a show without actually hurting Paul. The measured game plan Hearn mentions wasn't designed to win a fight. It was designed to create entertainment value while minimizing risk to both fighters. Joshua's discipline was really his professionalism in delivering a product that looked like boxing without the genuine danger that makes boxing compelling. Hearn's satisfied because they managed to create tension and excitement without anyone getting seriously hurt. But that's exactly the problem. Real boxing isn't supposed to be safe. The danger is what makes it meaningful. Listen to this breakdown from Duke McKenzie, because his technical analysis exposes the fundamental problem with treating boxing like entertainment rather than sport. McKenzie's pointing out Joshua's tactical superiority and composure, but what he's really describing is a professional heavyweight going easy on an amateur while making it look competitive. The disparity in experience and skill McKenzie mentions should have resulted in a first-round knockout, not a technical demonstration. When McKenzie says the outcome was highly revealing, he's diplomatically suggesting that anyone with boxing knowledge could see this wasn't a real fight. Joshua's ability to impose strategy and discipline over Paul wasn't impressive. It was evidence that he was controlling the entire interaction to create a specific result. And get this, Lawrence Oswecki's comments about the inherent dangers of boxing become almost ironic in this context. He's talking about how a single mistake can dramatically alter a fight, how momentary lapses in concentration can have severe consequences, how boxing demands respect for its dangers. But Paul's entire approach has been about eliminating those dangers through scripting and cooperation from opponents. Oswecki's reminder that boxing is not just entertainment hits differently when you realize that's exactly what Paul has turned it into. The high-stakes contest Oswecki describes requires both fighters to be genuinely trying to win, genuinely risking everything, genuinely facing the possibility of serious consequences. Remove that element, and you're not watching boxing anymore. You're watching a very expensive, very elaborate piece of theater. Here's what Luke Thomas gets absolutely right in his criticism of the praise Paul received. Thomas is pointing out that the media narrative around this fight was completely detached from reality. Everyone's celebrating Paul's performance and courage. But what actually happened was a YouTube star getting a gentle introduction to what real heavyweight power feels like, courtesy of a professional who was clearly pulling his punches. The excitement, Thomas says, was overstated came from people who wanted to believe they were watching competitive boxing when they were really watching a carefully managed exhibition. Thomas understands that evaluating fights based on skill, experience, and risk reveals the truth. There was minimal skill on display from Paul. The experience gap made this a mismatch, and the risk was artificially reduced through Joshua's restraint. So here you have it. Jake Paul wanted to script a fight with Anthony Joshua, got told no, and still managed to turn the resulting exhibition into a $100 million payday while convincing half the world he's a legitimate boxer. Joshua showed incredible professionalism by protecting Paul while still giving fans something to watch. And the boxing establishment is slowly waking up to the fact that they've allowed entertainment to completely overtake sport in their industry. This isn't just about one YouTube star playing boxer. This is about what happens when money becomes more important than authenticity, when spectacle matters more than competition, and when fake achievements get celebrated as real ones. The question isn't whether Paul can fight, it's whether boxing can survive being turned into scripted entertainment for social media audiences. What do you think? Is Paul destroying boxing's credibility, or is he just giving people what they actually want to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, smash that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening, and subscribe because this story is far from over. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, there's something even more sinister happening here that nobody's talking about. The ripple effects of Paul's scripted boxing empire are starting to influence how legitimate fighters approach their own careers. Young boxers coming up through the ranks are watching Paul make more money in one fake fight than most world champions earn in their entire careers, and they're starting to ask themselves why they're bothering with the traditional path. Why spend 15 years grinding through amateur competitions, getting your face rearranged in small venue fights for $500 purses, when you can build a social media following and skip straight to million-dollar paydays? This isn't just theoretical. Promoters are literally telling legitimate prospects that they need to become influencers first and boxers second if they want to make real money in this sport. And here's the really twisted part. The athletic commissions that are supposed to protect fighters and maintain the integrity of the sport are actively enabling this circus because of the tax revenue and media attention it generates. These are the same organizations that will deny a license to a legitimate contender because of a minor medical issue, but they're rubber-stamping fights between YouTube stars and retired legends who haven't been competitive in years. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, the most prestigious regulatory body in combat sports, has essentially admitted that entertainment value now outweighs competitive integrity in their decision-making process. When commission officials start talking about fan interest and economic impact instead of fighter safety and fair competition, you know the sport has lost its way. Check this out. Former heavyweight champion Shannon Briggs just went on record saying he was approached by Paul's team with a similar scripted offer 3 years ago, and the details he's revealing are absolutely mind-blowing. They didn't just want to choreograph the fight. They wanted to create an entire documentary series around Briggs' training camp that would show him struggling with motivation and conditioning issues. The script called for Paul to inspire the aging champion to rediscover his passion for boxing, leading to an emotional but ultimately unsuccessful comeback attempt. Briggs was supposed to start strong, making Paul look vulnerable in the early rounds, then gradually fade as his age and ring rust became apparent. The predetermined ending had Paul stopping Briggs in the 7th round with a perfectly timed combination that would send the former champion into retirement on his back. Briggs turned down a 7-figure payday because he said it would have dishonored every real fight he'd ever been in. But here's where this gets really dark. Multiple sources inside the boxing industry are now coming forward with evidence that Paul's team has been systematically approaching aging fighters and former champions with these scripted offers for years. We're not just talking about 1 or 2 instances. This appears to be their standard operating procedure. They identify fighters who are past their prime but still have name recognition, then offer them more money than they've seen in years to participate in predetermined outcomes. The contracts reportedly include specific clauses about how much punishment the opponent can inflict, how aggressive they're allowed to be in certain rounds, and even detailed instructions about their post-fight interviews. One former world champion who spoke on condition of anonymity said the script he was given included exact quotes he was supposed to use when talking to reporters after his loss. And get this, the financial structure of these deals reveals just how calculated this entire operation really is. Paul's team doesn't just pay fighters to lose, they pay them to lose in specific ways that maximize social media engagement and highlight real potential. Knockdowns are worth bonus payments, but only if they happen at dramatically appropriate moments. Fighters get extra money for showing heart and determination while gradually fading, because that narrative sells better than quick, decisive finishes. There are even performance bonuses for selling the fake drama convincingly during pre-fight press conferences and weigh-ins. One leaked contract included a clause requiring the opponent to display genuine emotional investment in the outcome during all promotional activities, with financial penalties for anyone who couldn't convincingly pretend they were trying to win. Now here's what's really disturbing about Tim Bradley's latest comments on this situation. Bradley's not just criticizing individual fights anymore. He's warning that Paul's success is inspiring a whole generation of influencer boxers who think they can buy their way to legitimacy. Bradley's seeing gym owners across the country dealing with social media personalities who want to skip the fundamentals and go straight to filming highlight reels for their channels. These wannabe fighters are showing up with camera crews and expecting trainers to help them look good on video, rather than actually teaching them how to fight. Bradley says the most frustrating part is watching real fighters get pushed aside because they don't have enough followers to generate the kind of online buzz that promoters want. Skill, dedication, and years of sacrifice don't matter if you can't bring a ready-made audience to the pay-per-view. Here's something that will blow your mind. Daniel Cormier just revealed that Paul's team actually approached him about doing commentary for one of these scripted fights, and they wanted him to follow a predetermined narrative during the broadcast. They gave Cormier detailed notes about which moments to get excited about, which combinations to praise, and how to build suspense around outcomes that had already been decided. The production team wanted Cormier to act surprised by unexpected developments and to sell the drama of moments that had been choreographed weeks in advance. Cormier said it was like being asked to commentate a movie while pretending it was a live sporting event. The most disturbing part was how sophisticated their planning was. They had backup commentary scripts in case certain predetermined moments didn't happen exactly as planned, complete with alternative storylines that would still lead to the same predetermined conclusion. But wait until you hear what Eddie Hearn just admitted in his latest interview, because it completely changes how we should view his role in legitimizing Paul's boxing career. Hearn revealed that when he was negotiating the Joshua fight, Paul's team made it clear that they expected certain accommodations to ensure Paul's safety and the fight's entertainment value. While Hearn claims he refused to agree to a fully scripted bout, he did acknowledge that there were understandings about pacing and intensity that went beyond normal pre-fight negotiations. Hearn's essentially admitting that even the fights that aren't completely fake still involve levels of predetermined cooperation that compromise their legitimacy as sporting contests. The scariest part is how casually he discusses these arrangements, as if manipulating fight outcomes for entertainment purposes is just another aspect of modern boxing promotion. And here's the kicker that ties everything together. Joe Rogan's follow-up investigation into Paul's entire boxing career has uncovered a pattern of behavior that goes way beyond individual scripted fights. Rogan's team found evidence that Paul's organization has been working with specific training camps and management companies to identify fighters who are willing to participate in predetermined outcomes. They've essentially created a network of complicit opponents, trainers, and promoters who understand that fighting Jake Paul means following a script rather than trying to win. The most damning evidence Rogan uncovered was a series of encrypted messages between Paul's team and various opponent representatives, discussing not just fight outcomes, but specific moments designed to generate social media clips and highlight real content. These weren't negotiations about purses and contract terms. They were production meetings for elaborate pieces of sports entertainment being sold as legitimate competition. So there you have it. What started as suspicions about one YouTuber playing boxer has revealed a systematic corruption of professional boxing that reaches into every level of the sport. From athletic commissions prioritizing revenue over integrity, to legendary fighters being offered scripts instead of fights, to commentators being asked to fake their reactions to predetermined outcomes. Jake Paul didn't just want to script one fight with Anthony Joshua. He's been scripting his entire career while convincing the world he's a real boxer. And the most terrifying part? It's working so well that other influencers are copying his playbook, and the boxing establishment is letting it happen because the money is too good to refuse. This isn't just about one fake fighter anymore. This is about the complete transformation of boxing from sport to entertainment, and once that line gets erased, there's no going back.